I think in an era of technological abundance, the human element becomes even more important than ever before. Interpersonal skills, being able to engage, to connect to other humans, to inspire other humans, I think is super important. And maybe we don't put enough emphasis on our education. I mean, there's now a whole phenomenon in the US called the alpha schools, where kids only basically get content 2 hours a day, but the rest of the day, they're taught life skills on how to present, how to engage, how to connect to other people. Maybe we should completely rethink the world of education for a world where maybe the pure technical side is going to be completely done by other means. So refocusing on the human element is more important than ever before.
Career of the future is not a ladder you're going to climb. It's not a path you're going to pursue that's linear. It's going to be a portfolio that you curate, like an artist would curate, like an investor would curate. But this idea of a career portfolio, unlike a job, that even if you love your job, if someone else gave you that job, someone else can take that job away. Your portfolio is yours forever. No one can fire you from it. No one can take it from you. And that gives people a sense of agency. And just in this one small area, it would be a radical but hugely helpful step for CEOs who know there's going to be disruption to help individuals reimagine what their career looks like at the company right now, as well as what it could look like in the future. And it could look like in the future at that company or maybe elsewhere, because we don't know. And what I've found is organizations are starting to individuals and organizations are starting to recognize that the shape of the future career looks very different than anything we've designed today. Creating space like a sandbox to actually help people design their portfolios. It doesn't mean they have to go do this. It gives them space to breathe and imagine different possibilities for their future. Hugely helpful. Also helpful in a way that goes beyond a specific job.
I think one of the most significant trends over the last 3 decades is what I call the rise of nomadic professionalism. This sense that we have a deep personal attachment to our work. We are looking for work as an avenue of expression, of growth, of meaning, as well, of course, of substance. But we are not seeking as much from our organizations. We have much looser, more precarious affiliations. I think the way leaders should respond to that shift is not by doubling down on trying to make people more loyal, but trying to figure out how do we make sure that our team, our organization provides great learning. Because the more mobile we are, the more we seek to be both portable and purposeful. And that requires intense and ongoing learning in order to sustain. How do we put learning at the center of our culture? Now, it turns out, rhetorically, we do it already all the time. Many corporations have embraced the rhetoric of universities. We build new headquarters and we call them campuses. We fire people and we call them alumni. You know what I'm talking about? But it's one thing to make the promise of learning, and it's another to keep the promise of learning. And together with a colleague, Annie Peshkam, we spent 3 years looking at 70 different companies that had a real capacity to be homes for talent. Not talent factories, but homes for talent, where talent felt they really found learning. And what we found in these homes, there were 3 kinds of learnings that were possible. And then when we thought about it, it's like in any other good home. The first was the kind of learning that helps you turn your talent into performance. So there's a very clear standard. There are very clear role models. And then you have opportunities to practice your knowledge, to practice your attitudes, to practice your skills with feedback from experts that helps you approximate that standard. And that's the kind of learning that over time helps you converge to a norm, if you want it to be colloquial, that helps you raise your game. That's one kind of learning. Then there's also another kind of learning. There's learning that gives you space to develop freely and have a voice. It doesn't require a standard. It actually requires giving people challenges, interesting opportunities, and then giving them questions. Why do you think things that way? Have you thought about a different way? What is it that you want to really bring to life into the world? Now, that sort of learning doesn't help us converge to a norm. It actually invites us to diverge from a norm. And then there's a third kind of learning, which is actually an opportunity to collaborate with people who are different from us, so that we can learn with and from them, so that we can build relationships with people we wouldn't otherwise understood or been able to connect with. And the first kind of learning gives you competence. The second kind of learning gives you courage. The third kind of learning gives you connection. And a good home, if you think about it, gives you all three.
There are 8 superpowers, all of which can be beneficial to leaders, I would say. If there is one that actually plays an outsized role in today's world, it's actually the one around trust, what I call start with trust. There are so many ways in which we've designed our world and often our organizational cultures from an assumption of mistrust. And in times of great change and uncertainty, we need trust more than ever, as a glue, as a connective tissue. As a first step to practice trust, it's interesting. Before you practice, you want to build your awareness around it. And that includes lots of things, including that there's a kind of trust that comes from your head, and there's a kind of trust that comes from your heart. Most people aren't aware of the difference. There are also many stories we have about our relationship to trust and our attitudes about trust. We don't know them about each other. We do not know if, for example, do you tend to trust people trust someone you don't know until that trust is broken? Or do you not trust anybody? And people have to earn that trust before you'll even give them the time of day. We don't know this about each other, and it creates a lot of problems. So the first thing you want to do is actually build an awareness and have some conversations around the role that trust plays in your life. How does trust work in your world? And from there, you can identify where you might need to invest more.
I'm not sure that remoteness necessarily means low trust. I think lack of connection erodes trust. And I think, of course, we can blame technology and we can blame physical distance. But throughout history, people have often been in proximity and had profound mistrust. And other times, they felt incredibly connected to others they had never seen, to leaders that maybe lived hundreds, maybe thousands of years before. So whether you are interacting through technology or without technology, the most important thing remains the same. Are you building connection? Are you showing care? And the way you show care is you try to understand my concerns, try to understand my aspirations. And if the work you do or the work you allow me to do is a way to take care of my concerns and to fulfill my aspirations, then we'll be trust a million miles away. And if we're in the same office and you don't seem to be curious or care about my concerns and my aspirations, then I will probably mistrust you and be looking to leave.
How about letting go of the idea that you're supposed to have all the answers? Because think about it. When there's an assumption that you or anyone is supposed to know exactly what to do and have it all figured out during times of great uncertainty, not only is this expecting the impossible, it also sets everyone up for failure and frustration. But when you can let go of this assumption, you actually empower and enable other people to step up, contribute, and lead. As a leader, if you're not letting go in this way, you are holding your team back.
In terms of disruption, in terms of what's coming in the future, what's been great to see is the greater attention to behavioral science and sort of that new wave of interest. I think often when I used to teach students, they thought marketing was just about advertising, was just about selling or sales. And now people have come to us, we need to understand our customers. We need to understand the people that we're trying to reach. And so there's been a new wave of interest in behavioral science. Sure, AI is here. Sure, there's a lot of attention to AI, but I think true understanding is just as important. And so whether we're trying to influence customers, whether we're trying to move ideas, whatever we're trying to do, the more understanding we have, the more effective we can be. Take certainty, for example. There are lots of situations where we express too little certainty. We say, I think, or maybe, or it might be. And so we need to understand how our language conveys certainty and how it impacts our audience. There are other words that we don't use often enough. So often we talk about how we should do certain things. We think less about how we could do, what's possible, which often helps increase our creativity and our teams.